It began like any other night in Valencia. The city lights shimmered across the Mediterranean, laughter echoed from cafes, and no one noticed the dark curtain gathering above. But within hours, the sky would break open. Sheets of rain fell with a fury unseen in decades, flooding streets that had never known water this high. Sirens screamed through the night. Cars floated like paper toys. The city of light was drowning in its own reflection. Locals whispered a single name, Alice. A storm born from the clash of two worlds, the cold breath of the Atlantic meeting the warm heart of the Mediterranean. And as the first thunder tore across the sky, no one yet knew that Storm Alice would turn Valencia, the jewel of Spain's east coast, into a scene of chaos, resilience, and survival. This is the story of when the sky collapsed. Storms don't appear out of nowhere. They are born, silently, slowly, from the clash of forces that have been building for days. In early October 2025, a mass of cold air from the Atlantic drifted east, meeting the warm, humid breath of the Mediterranean. The result was Dana, a weather phenomenon feared across Spain. Meteorologists call it an isolated depression at high altitude. But for those who have lived through one, it's a nightmare in slow motion. The air pressure drops, the clouds swell, and then the heavens open. Over the course of hours, Alice gathered strength, fueled by the sea's heat and the atmosphere's instability. By the time it reached Valencia, it was no longer just a storm. It was a force of nature, unpredictable, unstoppable, and merciless. But what came next, no one was ready for. The warnings came early that morning. Yellow alert for heavy rain. Possible thunderstorms. To the people of Valencia, it sounded routine, another autumn storm passing through. But by midday, the rain had changed its tone. It wasn't falling anymore. It was attacking. Within just 1 hour, over 100 millimeters of rain poured down, a month's worth in 60 minutes. Streets turned into rivers. Underground garages filled like bathtubs. Power lines sparked and hissed. Buses stalled mid-road. Cars were swallowed by rising water. People climbed onto rooftops, waving flashlights into the darkness, praying someone would see them. "Help us!" There are people trapped. The calls flooded emergency lines faster than rescuers could respond. The sound of the storm drowned everything, the screams, the sirens, even the city itself. Footage later showed torrents of water tearing through narrow streets of El Cabanal, ripping doors off hinges, carrying away market stalls and cafe chairs. In some neighborhoods, the water rose above 2 meters. Entire blocks disappeared beneath a sheet of brown, swirling chaos. The airport closed. Trains stopped. Valencia, a city known for sunlight and festivals, was now isolated, silenced, cut off from the world. Locals called it the longest night in memory. And yet, as the storm reached its peak, some refused to give in to the flood, because even when the city drowned, humanity refused to sink. In every disaster, there are two kinds of stories, those of destruction and those of humanity. Amid the chaos of Storm Alice, Valencia became both. On a narrow street in Benimaclet, firefighters waded through waist-deep water to reach an elderly woman trapped in her home. 87 years old, too weak to stand, she clutched a framed photo of her late husband as they carried her to safety. Across town, a taxi driver named Luis refused to abandon his car. For hours, he drove through flooded roads, offering free rides to anyone stranded, students, tourists, families with children. When asked why, he said, "If I stop helping, I stop being human." And at a small rescue center near the Turia River, volunteers worked through the night, handing out blankets and food. They hadn't slept in 36 hours, but their voices stayed steady. "We can't rest, not yet." There are still people out there in the darkest hours of the storm, when power failed and fear filled the city. It was these moments of courage, of kindness, of solidarity that kept Valencia alive. The rain may have drowned the streets, but it could never drown the human spirit. When the rain finally stopped, Valencia was unrecognizable. Mud-covered streets, cars piled on top of one another, storefronts shattered. The scent of salt, oil, and despair lingered in the air. In just 2 days, thousands of homes were damaged or destroyed. Roads collapsed, railways flooded, and entire neighborhoods were without power or clean water. Emergency services reported hundreds of rescues, and countless more still missing in the chaos. The city's transport system was paralyzed. The airport shut down. Schools closed indefinitely. And as the water began to recede, the true scale of the disaster became clear. Insurance agencies estimated losses reaching hundreds of millions of euros. Local businesses, cafes, hotels, small family shops faced ruin. The storm had not only flooded a city, it had drowned livelihoods, memories, and dreams. Across Spain, people compared it to the great floods of 2024, a tragedy that claimed more than 200 lives and reshaped the nation's sense of security. In Valencia, survivors spoke of silence after the storm. It wasn't just the rain, one said. It was what it took from us, what it took, and what it left behind. The morning after the storm, the city awoke in silence. Streets that had been rivers now shimmered with puddles reflecting the pale sun. Neighbors stepped outside, still in disbelief, yet alive, together. Volunteers swept mud from doorways. Strangers offered warm food to each other. Children splashed in leftover puddles, laughing for the first time in days. Valencia was wounded, but breathing. Across the skyline, the sound of hammers replaced the sound of thunder. Bit by bit, the city began to rebuild. Not just its streets, but its spirit. They say every storm reveals what's hidden beneath. And in Valencia, it revealed something powerful, the strength to rise again. Because light always finds its way through the cracks. Storm Alice will be remembered not only for the damage it brought, but for what it awakened. Compassion, unity, and the reminder that even the darkest night must eventually break into dawn. And as the sun touched the wet rooftops once more, Valencia, the city of light, shone again.